All right, gonna start the stream with a new opening daily where I show some of the drills real quick that I do every day, and it really helps get my creative thoughts going. Um, and this one I call the line drill. It's a little different. It's not as formal, and it takes a little bit of extra gusto to lean into it. It can be a little scary at first. It's for when I'm overthinking, when I'm going into a drawing and I'm just not. I'm limited by what I know. I'm thinking of poses and things that I know. So there are some times when I have to be spontaneous, and this is to try to do that. So what we do is we just draw a line, something like that, and then we try to turn this into a figure or something that we wouldn't necessarily come up with on our own. We try to figure out where this line of action could go and what we can do with it. I don't know. I'm going to draw a person just relaxing. Their head tilted back. Sometimes it's go of like those figures. Because it's real easy to just keep doing the same figures that you know work over and over. And sometimes you have to just be spontaneous and just let it rip. And it's not about getting it exactly right. It's just about having a spontaneous line carry you through a thought. Hey, Jonathan. Hey, Kevin. Kicking back with a brew. Nice, nice. Yeah, I might have one after the stream. It depends how I do, feel like I do, or how I think it goes. You know, if it's a successful one. And yeah, I'm starting off with just showing a little bit of like what you'll see in a sketchbook of mine. Like, and it's one of the reasons why like I don't publish my sketchbooks is because they're all like different thought exercises and studies. And this is the line drill. I draw a random line and I try to turn it into something else. In this case, I just went with a seated person. And it's not about, you know, doing necessarily any sort of detail work. Oh, yeah, it could be. Could be. Maybe it's a good way to do it. You know, and then that's really all that I'm doing is I'll take a line and turn it into something that I can use, like leaning up against a rock. You know, I'll do this one all in markers so it's easier to see. Let's just go like this, and let's see what we can do with that. And it just forces us to start, forces me to get my feet moving instead of going from like a blank page. We'll have somebody like running forward or walking forward. Let's drop that shoulder down. I've had to do a lot of computer work today, so I'm just trying to get my drawing brain going again. For me, they're really separate ways of thinking. And, you know, you can do this drill with people, you can do it with animals, you can do, I almost said aminals. You can do it with buildings, with cars, with anything you can imagine. You know, it's just a person walking forward, and it's, you know, we're not trying to get the details. It's just the thought and the line of action. Let's just fill the whole page. Let's just go like this. Let's start with that shape. Looks kind of like a person's back this way. Facing, I think they're flying. That's the back leg. Front leg will be a little bigger. But yeah, I have just sketchbook after sketchbook, and this just really helps me be more spontaneous, move quickly, just get a gesture down. They're like, it's a person that's like face down, frowny face down. And these are, just drills that I do. You can add as much detail. What I actually will do if I see a pose that I like is I will light box it onto another piece of paper and clean it up and fix the anatomy and do things like that and make it more, illustrative. But really, like, the drawing starts with these little squiggles for me. It's not anything fancy or anything that I would necessarily show to anyone. So it's a little nerve-wracking showing them to people. But it really helps me, and let's just try another one. Let's do like a squiggle. There's a squiggle. What can we do with that? It kind of, to me, looks like a, that one's tough. What do we think that could be? I think that could be like someone's hand coming forward, like, I think that's the front of the hand, and then that's like a little thumb being tucked in. Fingers, knuckles, and then the arm. Taking squiggles that I'm not thinking about at all. It's a drill that is sort of an offshoot of something that's called automatic drawing, and that is something that Mobius did. That's something that someone who was a master of the form that we just lost in Jungai Kim, or Kim Jung-gi, automatic drawing, where it's just you build and you go and you start with a pen and you just move across the page and you define the space. You use your geometric shapes and three-dimensional objects and your perspective to really work on deep space and going further and further and further back into the paper, into the scene. And you're keeping your vanishing points, you're keeping your light sources consistent, and you can really build an entire world one little squiggle at a time. If you start on one end and work your way to the other, you establish a foreground, midground, background. These are just shapes. Like, this is more of what you'd see like a Wally Wood, 22 panels that always work. We've got going further into space. And then you define, the space a different way by someone, hovering above the ground, and you can see under their feet, and you can see them looking down, and their arms are crossed, and there's like a cape flowing. But like, if you follow the vanishing points, your horizon line is here. You're just showing different ways to divide and show the shape. If there was some sort of spacecraft filling the area, it's just another way to fill and define shapes and create three-dimensionality. I have not heard the cause of death. I don't want to speculate. He was a young man. I shared a story once that I actually met him in San Diego, and I got to watch him draw. And in the instance that I got to see him, he had his TV set up above his table like he always did, so that you could view, and he invited people to watch. That was the whole idea. And it was early in the show. I was taking a break before really buckling down for the rest of the day, and I went over and I was just mesmerized. Like, he's just a phenomenal artist. And he works directly in ink, and that's a skill that takes a lot of gumption, a lot of guts, and a lot of just confidence. It takes a lot of confidence to go that direction. And I watched, and when I took a minute to look around, I saw that everywhere around me were other artists. It was me and 20 plus artists, and some of them were like very highly. These were guests of the show. These were well-regarded professionals and very esteemed people, just standing there, just like I was, in awe of watching this person do something that was magical. It was incredible. So I was glad I got to meet him. I couldn't afford any of the books because I just didn't have a lot of money. But I can say I met him and I watched him draw, and for a while he was the best in the world. Um, and I've seen people debating, you know, whether he was a genius or not or whatever. And I was just like, he's a phenomenal artist, a wonderful, wonderful draftsperson, and clearly he had abilities beyond those of normal folks, far beyond mine. And I don't, maybe he's peerless, but an incredible artist, and very sad that he's gone at such a young age. But tonight, you get to watch this hack work on his favorite thing to work on, his own stuff. This is the page that that's cool. If you have the ability to and space to do that, that's really neat. At a small con, other side of the table drawings, you said she is. Everyone can watch and see her draw. Yeah. Yeah, that's a cool way to do it. And it would be much easier at smaller shows for sure. But this is the page. And, I'm going to start out with the foreground elements of the top panel right here. And this is my Kuretake Sable brush pen, primed and ready to go. It's not clogging or anything. And yeah, we'll just get into it. I penciled this a lot tighter than I usually do, which should make tonight, hypothetically, a little easier. For me, inking is a continuation of drawing. So I'm continuing to try to refine what I've put down on the paper already, because I feel like it can always be improved. Let's get some water. Our light source is over here, so that's why you'll see heavy shadow on the right-hand side. I don't have a secondary light source for the foreground figure, but for the background, there's just a little bit just for some rim lighting, and you'll see that on the edge. I know people don't like rim lighting, but in this case, it was to create separation. Trying not to smudge, but it's inevitable. I really never got better at not smudging. I got better at cleaning up smudges. And while I do draw a lot digitally for a lot of modern gigs that require it, or it's just like impossible to meet the deadline without it, um, for my own stuff, I'll always draw it on paper, just because it's a tradition, and I'd like to try to uphold it for my own work. I had hoped to have been working on Jay's story. I'm doing a story for my buddy Jay, um, but I just didn't have time with all the other work I was doing today to even prep pages. And I had to go to the eye doctor again this morning before work, so I didn't have any morning time. But you can see it's starting to come together, and we're trying to define the shapes in space. And one of the things with the Axe of Helena pages is I definitely lay down more black ink because I use a retro coloring technique. And I want the forms to hold up. Here you can look at my lovely trading cards that I found a pack unopened. And it was in my drawer, and it was fun to open these. I bought these when I was a kid, and I got those at like a flea market for like $1 or $2. It was fun. And I'll show you some of the books I've been reading. I actually did a nice run to the comic book store, and I was excited to go for the first time in a while for new comics. Yeah, first pack got the Bone Claw Wolverine. We got with Black Widow, Typhoid Mary, Firestar, Black Wolf, Carrie Gamble, X-Men, Ron Lim, Venom. Yeah, it was fun. I'm not huge into trading cards, but I just was like, I'm gonna buy a pack of these for nostalgia. I remember when they used to sell Marvel trading cards at the grocery store right next to the baseball cards. What series was this? Marvel Universe, 1994. I was 10 years old. Distributed by Fleer, 1994. Yeah. So I was 9 or 10 when these came out. Drawn by Adam Kubert. Hey, I have a soft spot for the Bone Claw years of Wolverine. I have vivid memories of the kid. It was a time when what happened in comics was still important to kiddom at large, and I have vivid memories of people coming in like the week after, or the days after X-Men's Wolverine 75 came out. So, like, I'm sure there are people who hate that Fatal Attraction story, but I'll always have a soft spot for it. Now, I do not share the same love of Age of Apocalypse that some people do. Yeah, I see baseball cards still, at least at like Target and stuff. I see baseball cards. I don't see them at the Stop and Shop or anything anymore. But C'est la vie. Well, a lot of that stuff was is there a reason why it's not? Here we go. A lot of that stuff was distributed by the same folks that did the magazines, and when grocery stores got rid of their magazine racks, they actually just stopped buying from those distributors. I was waiting for a prescription, and I saw that, like uh, CVS and stuff still has like the terrible paperback books. At the CVS, it would be like there was a combination of it was an interesting spinner rack, I would say. It had some very religious looking novels, but then it also had like your wonderfully pulpy murder mysteries as well as romance novels. It was an interesting mix, let me say. And when you don't want to use data on your phone and you're waiting for a prescription, well, don't judge me if I dove right into some of the trashy books. It's right next to the puppies and kitty calendars, which hey, I do love a good kitty calendar. Yeah, we were talking about how there's not the same stuff at grocery stores, and it's largely from when they stopped carrying magazines, they stopped really using those distributors, and they distributed baseball cards. They distributed like a lot of those like Sudoku books. It's a little flat. That's okay. That is kind of shocking. I had to go to that Shaw's to pick up a FedEx not that long ago. They couldn't deliver it because it needed a signature, and they came up to my door but didn't knock or anything, so had to reroute it and go pick it up at a drop-off location. Did you survive Cincinnati, Douglas? That's good. That's good to hear. It's one show I haven't done yet. That's right. I think we talked about it briefly when we were texting. Oh, into a Reds game. Nice. Nice. Anytime you can line up a ball game in a convention, that's a good deal. Who were they playing? Excuse me. Nice, nice. Have I been to the newer Red Stadium? I have. It was years ago. I went to the old Red Stadium, and I went to the new Red Stadium back when Griffey was still playing for the Reds, I think. Griffey and Adam Dunn. This was before like Joey Votto and them got there. I think we saw Aroldis Chapman, maybe. Or I'm misremembering. No, I saw Chapman in Baltimore when he was playing. They were playing the Reds then. The game I saw at Old Red Stadium, that was the hottest temperature baseball game I've ever been at. You could see the heat coming off the AstroTurf. That was one of the last outdoor AstroTurf fields still in use. Let that dry a little bit. Now, as I've gotten older, I've grown to dislike microns. I much prefer the pit pens. There's a little more flex to them, and I like the ink in them, and I like the line. I don't know. I've just enjoyed using them more than they have. I don't know, a more satisfying line. It's just another type of like markery type pen. Not yet. No, it's not on Comixology. It's on my list of many things to do. But next year it's looking like, for my own mental stability, like this year I spent so much time chasing gigs and doing tryouts and, looking to get stuff from other publishers. Next year I'm going to go full court press into my own stuff. And I'm not just saying it, I've already made plans. I've already got people looking to put some money into it for me. And that's what I'm going to do. You're this year, you know, after chasing it and doing favors for editors and shit, and it just never worked out. And there were gigs that I was a finalist on, and all this other garbage, and it just, I was, for whatever reason, I was not the guy picked on several gigs that would have really helped me out and been fun to work on, and you know that's the stuff that happens. And it ended up where I'd be, held in limbo, waiting for, like, hey, if you're going to do this project, you need to be available immediately and for the next like 3 months. And another one, it was like 8 months. So like I wasn't able to like commit to other little gigs. And next year I'm committing to my own stuff. I'm already working on the schedule. Um, Absolutely, Brian, 100%. You're going to see Undersea Hero. You're going to see new Iron Face, and you're going to see more Helena pages than I've ever put out in a year. And if somebody wants to hire me for a gig, then it's going to have to be when I'm available. You know, or if I'm financially destitute, which it could happen. It could happen. I tried out for a bunch of stuff, and they have you do test drawings. They have you do, or they had me do. I'm not going to project. We've got some terrific artists here in the audience. Maybe they just hand it to, but for me, they're like, that guy needs to do test drawings, and then you do them on your own dime. So. So, and I'll be in control of all that stuff, so I'll be able to work on it on the streams. I'll be able to work on it and post things as they get done. And I want it to be a little bit more interactive. I want the process of making comics to be available for people to learn and interact with. And, I'm going to post schedules. Is there anything that I would drop my schedule for? I mean, it has to be something that I want to do and is worth the time. I mean, there people always ask, like, what character do you want to work on or any of this stuff. I have creators that I would want to work with because they hold quality paramount. I've said for years, like, and I've heard from his collaborators that Howard Chaykin holds people accountable. He'd be probably number one on my list for people I'd want to work with. My buddy Ron Mars, we talked about working on stuff. And hell, I was up for a gig with the Burroughs estate, but that didn't work out. And it's tough. It's hard out there. And I want to make pages. Like, it's depressing when I don't get to make pages. Where I have to hold off on stuff because they're not sure, and then they put you in a holding pattern. And I really didn't enjoy that. It's not a fun experience. And I put out fewer pages this year than I have in a couple of years. And I'm not saying, like, oh, I'm above gigs with so and so or this company or that company. It has nothing to do with that. It has entirely to do with wanting to put out stories and make pages and challenge myself. I'm not great at like covers and pinups and stuff. I'm really not. Pages are where my brain works best, and I'm willing to do the work. That's the other crazy thing. I look at like I said, I went to the comic book store. I picked up some really fun books, and I've been reading them. But I also see that there are books where people aren't putting in the work. Like they don't. You know, there was no tick artwork to buy. Well, and NEC is NEC, and there's a chance that there's a lurker, in the audience, and I don't care. Like they strung me along with a couple of things, and they changed their plans, and that affected some of my life. And you know, I guess it's on me, but that's just the truth of it. But yeah, putting out pages, putting out books, and when I have more regular stuff coming out, I'll be putting stuff up just like I did for the first Helena book, where it'll be one page at a time, available digitally on the website for free. But any collected editions or anything, it would be for sale. Like a full comic book is for sale, or like on Comixology or what have you. Any instance where the pages are all together. And every store I've gone to, like in now in Canada and America, all they ask is like, "Why didn't you do another Tick comic book?" And I don't lie to them. I just tell them NEC just didn't put it out. They didn't want to do it. I have two stories that I did for them on the shelf. Um, and who knows if they'll ever publish them. So that's exactly what happened to me like yesterday, Douglas. Like I literally looked at the stack. We all build a stack of finished artwork every year. Obviously like pinups and stuff, things that we sell, commissions, whatever, they're not in that stack. And I don't factor them in. When I look at the number of published pages, covers, and that, I was just like, God, I just wanted to spit. Trying not to swear. I did. I got mad, and I was just, you know. And another one is the altered reality comics, the stuff that I was doing for altered reality, the Rhode Island Comic Con, and them, and that stuff's been on hiatus since for 2.5 years. You know, that was another place where I was putting out, probably oh, let's say 50 pages a year. Um, so, and I have no answers on whatever they plan on doing with that stuff. Like all the characters, they own all of that stuff. So the only one that I would offer to buy one character set back, and that's the Jason and the Argonauts book that I worked on with Rich Woodall. I would work out some sort of a deal to get that back to finish that, because we only had two issues left. We did two. It was a 4-part series. Just get it done, man. Just have it finished. And like this stuff, what pushes me to do better work with this stuff is that I just want it to be the best stuff I can do. And I'm very self-critical. Like this is actually the third layout for this page. I didn't take them all to like finish, but I absolutely did 3 different layouts for this page. And I have the thumbnails somewhere. Do I have that book with me? I don't hawk big tube books very often, but this was a lot of fun. This was it's written by Bruce Campbell, drawn by Eduardo Rizzo, and the art's just terrific. And I hate war comics. So like this thing has like a couple of strikes in the me book world, and yeah, see the zombies and just really subtle things like just yellow eyes on the purple background. It's good use of color. But I recommend that book. It's the Sergeant Rock versus the Army of the Dead. Very fun. If you like Bruce Campbell Evil Dead stuff, you'll dig it. Silly people, Jonathan. Silly, wrong people, that's who. I don't think it's technically Evil Dead, but it's just Sergeant Rock fighting some Nazi zombies. Yeah, just good storytelling. I won't ruin the ending of the first issue. But yeah, I know Dynamite published that stuff for a while, and I heard in an interview that Raimi and Campbell and the people that own Evil Dead really didn't want comics and extra stories made, but it was licensed through whether it was the movie studio or the distributor. It was licensed through someone, not them. And then you can see how long it takes me to do even just one panel. And I was listening to some interviews listened to an interview with Howard Chaykin, and he was talking about establishing shots and framing and deep space. And like this top panel is like it exemplifies, all those things that I feel like he was talking about. It was framing with foreground figure elements, telling story in multiple levels. He's picking up his little bird friend. Lady here is about to strike over here. Helena's arguing with Saga in the background, and then you have the other layer of the background and then even further back. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 layers. Yeah, absolutely. That Plastic Man stuff. As much as I love like Lou Fine, he was a master draftsman, but not necessarily an innovative storyteller. One creator, Cole is one, and then another creator who I cite that to is Kriegstein. Kriegstein would always have layers of action, and he always had just world building going on. Like if you look at the Master Race story, he had just people in the background and with the detective going through the subway and stuff. Just fantastic. Someday if we do a show together, you'll have to be on my making comics panel, Douglas. It's the panel that I enjoy doing the most, and I always have a co-pilot on it. At Rhode Island, they haven't announced it yet, but I'll say it here. My buddy Craig Rousseau is going to be my co-pilot on the Making Comics panel, which that'll be cool. I haven't done a panel with Craig in a number of years. Yeah, and there's always I can't predict where it always goes, but there's always good participation, good attendance, and it's people who want to make comics. So those are the people. Those are the people I like talking to. We can do the good cop, bad cop thing. If you want to discourage them, I'll be the good cop. Are you any good? Then stop making comics. I could see you letting them have it a little bit. And people always come up after the panel and always have extra questions. Like I've never done one and not had people even when we had the last time slot of the show at Rhode Island last year, people were still coming up afterwards. So it's a good time, Douglas. I gotta say, and it's I'm always happy to see that there are people, under the age of, let's say, 45 that are like, yeah, I want to hand draw comic books, learn how to do that. It's not just old dudes. I did see one person comment on a page I did of Helena that was pretty funny. It made me laugh just because like it was 100% true. Um, they were commenting on how much body hair I put on some of my male characters. And I was like, I don't know. I draw them all differently, so I was thinking about just covering this dude, but I already established him in a previous panel. It made me laugh. Made me laugh that they were like, "It's a good page, but that guy has a lot of body hair." It's like, okay, I'm glad that's what you got out of that page that took me like 3 days to draw. Uh, and I did see I am privy to what some of the panel stuff will be. I totally agree. And Douglas, one of the things I wanted to do at one panel was have a do one of the have a either a store owner or a comics vendor up there too. That would be important. You're absolutely right. And just educating people on what it is and why it's about the form. There's absolutely an information shortage, and reviewers, you are correct. There are far too many reviewers and editors who focus exclusively on the writing, you know? Um, and I don't know if that's because they necessarily come from a writing background, but I was joking with Camille in the car because I've been going to the eye doctor lately. I was like, if I lose an eye, I then have to become a critic because I can't draw anymore. So I just have to be critical of everyone else's drawings. That's what I'd have to do. It would be well-informed criticism, but I would become that guy who legitimately critiques artwork. I really don't like this right here, so we're gonna lose that. See, and that's where looking at it. Looking at this on screen, I can actually see the inking on screen, and it's kind of working like flipping it over in a mirror. That's true. That happens too. Um, there are a couple of sites that where they have good reviewers. The Comic Crusaders do a pretty good job of critiquing both the art and the writing, and what's his name? The 13th. He uses a pen name. He's like the 13th Crusader. He does a good job. I haven't seen those guys in years. They used to be around all the time. I think they moved out of the area. Oh, we've got our first figure inked. How about that? I would go very graphic. It would be like full on hacky looking Alex Toth stuff. That's the way I would go, Brian. Or I would make like color forms. I'd do like cutouts of figures. And now you can start to really see the difference between what my inks and my pencils look like. See if we can get a little more light. Well, I think that it would have to be done basically for a legitimate art critique. It would have to be done like public access. Like it would have to not be, for money. It's got to be. I guess that's where like you have to figure out what you're gonna do. Like, and how do you pay for it then? Because it's been a very long time since the comics journal was like. Because if you read those old issues of the comics journals, they get into it. They get into the storytelling and the artwork. And Gary Groth, lets the big two have it, like on many instances. I've got anytime I see an old issue of the comics journal in like a magazine bin for less than $5, I snap it up. This little Kiwi fellow, I'm gonna find me like a stuffed kiwi on the internet somewhere, and I'll make some armor to put on him. I'll put him on my table. A little bell around his neck. Now, one of the ways that I try to add more depth to the images is I'll use a lot more brush in the foreground, and then I'll switch to pens for the background. It's not really a trick, it's just a technique that I think a lot of people use. Some people use just different size pens, or they'll build the line up, in the foreground more. But yeah, like this nice, I might even thicken this chunky line here. But you get this dark area almost becomes like a gigantic line. And that's what I was going for, to try to anchor this panel in the foreground. And I don't know if you've ever seen a kiwi bird. It did have a lot of insight. The interviews were great. They did love their crumb. And Gary, was the only person that I've read, that was very critical of like, of Steranko, because he used to work for him, of some of these guys who, were and let's be honest, it was mostly men that they were speaking about, um, that were or are now considered like beyond reproach and are like considered like sacred cows, you know, to use a sports term. But we got baseball fans in the audience tonight, so I can sport it up, be a little sporty. Although I might be the only person in the audience looking forward to hockey season. His little beak here. I did modify his beak a little bit from like a real kiwi bird. But Fantagraphics, gave us like the early Stan Sakai work, gave us the Hernandez brothers, the work that they did for furthering, you know, good comics. I mean, it's hard to understate. Yeah, yeah. I get that feeling sometimes too, man. There's definitely times where I do have to build it up, but in this case, I actually penciled this, like I said, way tighter than I usually do. And I know people are going to say that looks so loose. I can't tell you how many editors tell me, like, even when I basically traced a photograph, you know, this is too loose. And to me, I wonder, like, is that what you think it means? Or do you just think it's crap and you don't want to say it's crap? Which I'd rather they just told me that. But that's another thing about the making comics panel. And I intentionally build into the discussion teaching people the proper terms for things. Like, what is a gutter? What is a, you know, it's a balloon. It's not a bubble. It's a, caption box. It's a three-panel progression. Like there are terms, there is a lexicon, there is a language of this art form. And not it's not written down anywhere. Maybe. Because when I think of Loose, and I've always loved his pencil and inking himself, is Klaus Janson. He has that wonderful energetic line that just like, he has that, it goes. And I think Dan Panosian has like a similar one that he uses in inking where it's just got this, and then it gets thicker like this, then it tapers off, and then he'll come back in with just a squiggle. And then it's Daredevil's head or whatever. That's a guy or Bill Sienkiewicz, Loose. Because I tend to think of the difference between loose and tight to be whether or not the lines are directly defining the form. If a line is not directly defining the form, I generally think of that as loose. Like there's a series of lines together, and that ends up making the line on the form. So, but yeah, we talk about that stuff on the panels, and I always encourage people, like, if there's a word that you don't know, please raise your hand and we'd be happy to define it. Because there are words we use every day that someone who just buys a comic, on a lark or isn't a regular may not know. And maybe learning about it, they'll be like, hey, that's interesting. Or I wonder what else they don't know about what they do. 9/11. Now, I use a lot of pen on background elements, but right here I want to get a thicker line. It's got a little bit more bump to it. And again, I don't want to have to build it up, so go like that. And I know it's not like as fun as like going in and like Neil Adams used to do. He'd ink all the faces first, or then he would ink the figures and whatnot. I like to do them in layers, um, and I like to get the foreground elements done first because they tend to smudge on me, and I want to maintain the forms as best I can. Let's erase a little bit so you can see this better. When I was at the museum in Montreal, I was looking at a painting that was just of three or four women reclining on the edge of a roof, and they all had these beautiful head wrappings. And I just was struck by the color and the technique and the folds in the fabric, and it was just it's a beautiful piece. I looked at it probably longer than anybody else that walked through that room, and I would imagine it's considered an unspectacular painting because they didn't have like it's not on any T-shirts or anything. Um, but that tends to happen when I walk a museum. I'll find something, and it just hits a chord, and I will just stare at it for as long as whoever I'm with will tolerate it. And they had some beautiful Calder work. They had some interesting Bill de Kooning work. But yeah, and I'll internalize that and look at adding that. And I've already been doing designs and stuff for future issues, of course. I've got through issue 6 plotted. And actually, the next issue is the first issue where people who volunteered to get killed off in my comic will start to be getting killed off. There's a big battle scene flashback in The Son of Thrud. And yeah, that's next issue is where anybody who there was a thread ages ago where I was like, who wants to get killed off? Because I was writing that particular issue. And I've had people ask, when's that going to happen? Well, we've now just run into our first new characters. So one thing I've learned about some of these cast shadows that aren't fully solid, when I go in and color it, nobody is going to notice like that texture at all. So I don't spend as much time on it as I used to. Now I know that that's a thing you're not supposed to say, that every square inch is precious, like the Monty Python, every sperm is sacred. But there's just things that you have to pick and choose your time on. I got to throw in a Monty Python reference for you there, Jonathan. It's actually been years since I've watched the Flying Circus TV show. I don't know how. I don't know if I should watch it and just let it exist in that wonderful little nostalgia bubble. Now the light source, like I said, is up here, the primary one. And how I've been defining light sources over larger images has changed over the years. I used to really just think of directional lighting, and that was really like a good introductory way to think about lighting. But as I've gotten older, I've thought about it as ambient lighting and on how it affects all these different surfaces from different angles because they're facing the light differently. It's just a more refined and complicated way to think about lighting and how it bounces off of objects and how it interacts with other things on the page. And also using lighting as a directional object. In this case, the lighting being here is coming down sort of at an angle this way, top to bottom, left to right, but spreads out and gets weaker away from the main focal point. So, like, there's heavier black shadows and fewer highlights over here and over here. And that's just a subtle way to, again, try to draw the eye naturally in the direction you're going to be reading it. The lighting and the lettering all work together. Um, and that's a level of planning that I didn't have when I was younger. Like, I didn't think about it in those terms. I was just trying to not suck at basic drawing, which, I'm not saying I don't still suck at it, which I'm sure that, critics being what they are. Um, but I do think about it in more difficult terms and difficult concepts of expressing the direction of the action. I believe you. A lot of the not popular skits show their age. That's my worry. Like, there's so many shows that I've like taken a dive into, and I'm like, I should have left this in that nice little nostalgia bubble and not revisited this. I generally find it with a lot of TV, but I will say I've actually been watching the old Battlestar Galacticas while I've been eating breakfast in the morning, um, and they're fun. If you don't take them like stupid serious, like, it's just like a popcorn flick. I know people take that show really seriously, especially the newer one. But if you're just looking for like stuff in space, uh, and like a '70s disco of aliens, that's like the third episode. If you're on board with that, then we're good. And it's so funny. I've never actually seen the whole series, and there's only like 20 episodes. And I've met a whole bunch of the folks from the show over the course of my career going to comic conventions. I had a one of those exchanges with a celebrity at Colorado Springs this year, where I had to tell them, unfortunately, I don't have Disney Plus, so I haven't seen their show. And they seemed cool, but I felt like I had hurt their feelings, perhaps. The Rockford Files has aged well. It's perfect '80s detective fun. That's the one with James Garner, right? I like James Garner. I liked Maverick as a kid. Foreground plants. If there was it's one of those things that when I do concept art, um, they just have it figured out that, like, it has to be complex looking and believable, but people aren't going to look at it. So, like, it just has to not look like a fake plant. And a lot of the times they have a brush that's literally just drops a plant in there. So, like, all this labor that you're watching doesn't exist in concept art. Hey, and I thought about really going in the concept art direction this year, just because there's like No prestige, but real money in it. I did some like level paint overs and some Garner living in a trailer driving a muscle car. That sounds fun. I'll check it out. Sure, I'm sure it's free on Tubi, my favorite streaming service, and they do not pay me. But I would wear a Tubi T-shirt on live television because I watch it so often. They've got a whole bunch of the Hammer horror movies, all the Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing stuff you could ask for during the holiday season, which I love. Someday I'm just gonna draw like 50 plants and then just like scan them in. And then I'll do the basic figure work. And when I need one of these, I'll just plop it in. They can't say I didn't draw it because I did. I have to add a bunch of spotted blacks with my brush on this, but like the plants are too complex for me to brush anymore. And it's just I used to sit there and brush everything out. I would do brush over the whole damn thing. All these little rocks and stuff I would just painstakingly do and brush. And I just got to the point where I was like, nobody cares. And it doesn't look any worse because the lines are so small that like you can't tell that it's a dead line when it's printed. You can't. Those Hammer flicks, dude, I love those movies. I could put them on at any time. Uh, Captain Kronos is one of my favorites. 80, 1972. Curse of the Werewolf, The Skull. Any of the Van Helsing movies with Peter Cushing, just a blast. The Gorgon, that's another good one. Yeah. Ugh. Not sure where I put my phone, but it doesn't matter. I think the Gorgon is one. I think that's a Hammer movie. If not, it's a Hammer knockoff. But yeah, the Oliver Reed ones. They did a Jekyll and Hyde that was like a spin-off. Like they changed the story a bit. It's gritty. It's fun. They're a little sexier. It's a little gorier. It's just I understand why they were criticized as not being fine art. as they were being put out, but they're just so fun. I don't know. What was the other one? Carnival of Souls? Was that another one, I think? Carnival of the Damned? No, the Gorgon. Gorgon. I'll pull it up. There you go. Yeah, Hammer Film. The Gorgon. Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee. Good movie. Good movie. It says it right there. British horror film directed by Terence Fisher for Hammer Films. Christopher Lee. I tend to mumble. I'm sorry. I do not have a voice for radio. I'm actually going to leave that completely blank. I think we've got enough texture mixed in here. And then like when it's colored, because I want to have that hard edge right there where it's full contrast black with a shadow on his hand and then white. One of my favorite things, just in general, is erasing the pencils. And then it just reveals the new drawing, new feeling. This is where Helena is meeting the hunters in the land of monsters, the self-proclaimed hunters. And they've just been following the little kiwi bird with the bell around his neck. And one of the things, and I'm not sure, I'm sure you've read American Flags, but Ken Bruzenak, who's a letter whom I have great regard for, he would use just full-length sound effects across a page. Like if someone was firing a gun, it would be like butta 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 butta, and it would be behind the characters firing the guns. And in the case of our kiwi bird here, they're following this jingling noise, and there's going to be like a string of jingle, 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 and it actually concludes here when he's fully revealed, and he's like, "There, good job, my friend." And the path of the words, jingle has been going through like the last, several pages. It'll be like, and it has followed like, and actually it's part of the, like on the other pages, it goes through like the whole page because they're following this noise. And, in comics, one of the wonderful things that we get to play with is the expression of sound. And, the different ways we can do that are with, sound effects, different fonts, different type treatments. And the way I've decided to do it for this is have the word jingle repeated, all throughout, as they're following until they, our little fella here reveals himself. And I don't know why I thought of a guy with a little kiwi bird wearing armor as like his little scout, but I was thinking about a different way to have a familiar concept of, the people who use birds to hunt or to, scout, like in medieval times, falconers, and do it in a different way. And I always liked penguins and birds that walked on the ground, and I was like, well, kiwis are cute, and they're a little faster than penguins. Penguins can't really run, and I thought that would be a fun little different way to have something in this world where it's a concept we as humans know, but done in a different way. All right, we can start over on this side now. I need one more brush line right here. Did you ever see The Woman in Black with Daniel Radcliffe? That was the new Hammer movie. Not sure if they did anything else after. Jonathan, I have not seen that one. I've seen Horns. I saw that one. Is that the one you're referring to? But no, I have not seen the Woman in Black. But it's coming along. We've got some inking going. And this is like this and Undersea Hero, and anytime I'm doing anything, with my own characters, it's like the one place where I'm not constantly pulling up reference or second guessing or whatever, and I can just work. It's a little tough holding the page this way, because it's 11 by 17 and I'm kind of standing at my desk. So what I might do next is the inset panel, and I'll come back up and work on this part later. But yeah, let's do that. It's 9:34. We might be able to get this panel all done here. I can look it up. I saw this one. Yeah, I haven't seen that one. There may be a disc with the wife's horror collection. I'll see if it's available. I haven't seen that one. It looks. Hey, I'll check it out. Tis the season. Even though I admit I watch horror movies, a good chunk of the year. Basically, I think winter is just like the perfect time for it. Everybody's trapped inside. See, I went from thickest lines to thicker and then to thinnest as it goes back. And I wanted this panel to be heavy, heavy contrast. Heavy, heavy cast lighting, shadows from her hair covering almost her whole face. Like, that's what I want. That's one of those shots of her that, like, if I ever did like I don't know, like a quick animation or whatever, it would probably be like the end shot. And that's something I plan on teaching myself. There's a couple of animation. I've been doing video editing for a good chunk of the summer and learning it. And so much of it is similar to animation. And I'm actually able to use editing software to do basic animation techniques, which is interesting. So that might be something I look into learning more about. And look, different artists would do this differently. They would have all kinds of little noodly lines and different ways of doing the rendering, in ways that are professional and beautiful. But like, I found that when I go and I color this stuff, I lose it. I lose a lot of that work. It's hard to see. Hey, thanks, Jonathan. Good to see you. Have a good night, bud. Hopefully, we can hang out sometime soon. But yeah, for this shot, she's skeptically looking at someone. And I don't necessarily answer who. Like, she's talking to Saga in the earlier panel, in this panel, and they're not exactly on sure footing because he disappeared from the campfire earlier that night, and they didn't know where he went. They don't know why he left. And you have these new characters just showing up. Does he know them? Does he know what's going on? I don't like spelling everything out, and I don't know. I know stuff gets missed, but I hope people get enough of it that they're at least entertained. I don't know. I've considered doing a creator commentary on the first issue, but I feel like that would just be a waste of my time and everyone else's time. And I don't know if anyone who doesn't already get out of it what I'm putting down would get anything out of it. Maybe it's something I do when we get the first 6 done, when the first arc is done. Well, we could at least do a read along on the stream. I'd have to put it on a. We would have to watch it on YouTube because there's I believe a total of 2 nipples shown, and that would be Facebook no. it's obviously, and there's some very violent stuff when she's mowing those guys down with her axe in the beginning. So it's got plenty of stuff that Facebook would rather I didn't put on their platform. But we could do it on YouTube and on my website. So, and Twitter, I imagine. If only they would forgive me for that. No, I've committed the horrible sin of showing the human form and showing that characters can have free will and autonomy and desire. It's a terrible thing. Terrible. Twitch allows that. I'm on there. I just don't know the rules so well. I really don't navigate and like consume much on Twitch. My compadre of Iron Face has a show on Twitch that I check out when he's not just playing video games. I'm not a big fan of watching video games. I know that that's like a big chunk of that world. I had someone telling me that it would be a good idea for promoting my comic book if I talked about it while playing video games, and I thought they were crazy, but then I was sent numbers and I was like, my goodness, okay. Maybe someday I would have to buy something to play video games on. It's a strange world and I'm still learning a lot about it. But yeah, I think it's 9:45. I think we'll end our evening there. But you can see we've got our foreground characters inked in, the hunter, the kiwi, the foreground plant here. And what I'll probably do is add a little bit of spatter here just to make it a grittier foreground texture. I'll make a mask and put it over this, and then put the specks just in this part. And then maybe a tiny bit I can put in digitally up here, but we don't want to lose that depth. I'm going to have basically no texture here except in the shadows. But I did also, and I mentioned this on Twitter, I picked up Carlos Pacheco's last cover. He was unfortunately diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease, and he's retired from comics. He's an artist who I like very much, and had to go pick up his last comic. And it's been a tough stretch for artists, but I really see a lot of people come together. To everyone that's going to be at New York Comic Con, I wish you the best of luck. I hope you get that comic you're looking for, or you do very well, make plenty of money, and justify the New York sales tax permit. And I hope it's everything that you want it to be, and it could be, and it's very successful for all of you. I wish I could be there with you, but circumstances didn't work out this year. There's a lot of great cartoonists that are going to be there. Ray Anthony Height, a friend of mine, will be there. He's terrific. I think I saw that Xander's going to be there, Xander Cannon. I saw just a gigantic list of artists and writers that'll be there. So go support them, buy their funny books, and check out their other works. These are the other books I picked up. First Damage Control. And this is that that John Carter blank cover. So I'll do something good with that at some point soon. And thank each and every one of you. Means the world to me that you come hang out and just chat about your day and comic stuff and art and fun things. And I also got that. Got the Eric Larson book. It's a privilege and an honor, and I hope to see you next Wednesday, and I hope you all have a very lovely night. Good night, everybody.